Well, good morning, and welcome again this morning to another live. Hope you're having a great day, and we'll just wait a moment here for a few folks to come on with us. Here we go. Say hello. Hi, Nick. Michael from Wawa. Good to have you on this morning with us, okay? Rosa. Nativity. Good to have you this morning as we get ready for another live. And Kim, good morning. And Jeanette from our staff, good morning to you. And Jerry, friend from Nouveau Brunswick. And Kim is out of quarantine, she says, ready to go. Freedom. And Long Island, New York, good morning to you. And Dorita from Manitoba, and Joan, and Darcy, and Brian Mills, good morning. We appreciate it. I just want to say hello to Alina from Long Island. Okay. And Jerry, Joseph, Natalie, you guys are great. Thanks for coming on. Susan. And Sandra, also from Manitoba. Evelyn from Guelph, Ontario. Jeanette, bonjour. You guys are great. Irene, Nouveau Brunswick. Her first live. Irene, good morning to you. Welcome. Sue from Manitoulin Island. I'll tell you, there's a beautiful island, is Manitoulin Island. Louise, Chantal, good morning to you. We appreciate you coming on this morning. Okay, so we got a great program this morning. We're going to, someone asked me to do this, and I've done it in the past, but you know what? It's been a long time, and I am going to make this, I think, very interesting. Okay, now. There is, and this is mainly for infection. It's interesting when you look back at history, you know, we're coming around almost full circle, okay, when it comes to bacteria or viruses, and then your immune system, okay? And when I say it's almost full circle, we have been in an experiment here for probably over a year now with the virus. And what we've done is we followed Louis Pasteur, okay? Now, Louis Pasteur was a genius, microbiologist, smart man, invented some vaccines, I think, for rabies, anthrax. And his idea, and he wasn't wrong, was that you have bacteria or viruses, and we have to fight bacteria and viruses. So if a bacteria come, and he was the guy, by the way, Louis Pasteur, that invented pasteurization, pasteurized milk, in order to kill the E. coli or bacteria that would be there. And you know, he's done some wonderful things, and medicine has done wonderful things. Where do you think antibiotics came out of? Again, great. The problem is when you take that, the germ theory, okay? The germ theory, and then you forget about the host or your terrain, okay? Your bioterrain. What's that mean? Well, it means your immunity, how your body works to defend yourself against bacteria and viruses. And guys, let me say this, okay? You're always going to have to fight bacteria or viruses. And some of them might be pandemics, like SARS or MERS. These were pandemics. But, and I'm just saying a general statement, there's always exceptions to it. Generally what happens in medicine is we need to get a vaccine out. Now, you saw it happening, especially in the United States, where Operation Warp Speed, they brought out vaccines. Different pharmaceutical companies have brought out vaccines along the line of Louis Pasteur. Now, on the other end of the, who was a rival to Louis Pasteur, was a fellow by the name of Antoine Béchamp. Okay? So two Frenchmen. I'm a Frenchman. And actually, Antoine is on my birth certificate. Ooh, I never liked that name. I didn't. I remember teachers in school, you know, I wouldn't answer if they said, Antoine, what's the answer to that? I couldn't stand it. I was Tony, and that's what I wanted, okay? I kind of laugh about it now, but I hated that name. I remember telling my dad, what the heck did you call me Antoine for? Well, that was his name. Okay? But nobody ever called my dad Antoine either, okay? I wouldn't put up with it. Anyway. But there was a guy by the name of Antoine Béchamp who had a rival theory. A rival theory, the host theory or the terrain theory. There was the bacteria theory or virus, the germ theory, okay? And then there was the host theory or the terrain theory. And these guys were contemporaries to each other, and they were rivals. And guess which one won? You know what? If you have a class in biology or microbiology, you'll learn about Antoine Béchamp, but you got to Google it otherwise to find it. But Louis Pasteur, of course, and who, you know, became very famous. And medicine took the germ theory and ran with it. Now, tomorrow is question and answer, but on Monday, I want to do a little bit of history of cancer. And I think you will find that interesting because there was two theories there too, okay? And I will give you a little bit of history of cancer and modern medicine's look or the way they treat cancer, okay? And we'll look at that. I think you will find that interesting too. But let's get back to the germ theory of Louis Pasteur. And again, a lot of good things have come out of it. Lots of good things have come out of the germ theory. I talked about antibiotics and antivirals, even antifungals. You know, the pharmaceutical industry really came out of this theory, the germ theory. Now, they have other medications, of course, but a lot of their medications, especially the advent of antibiotics and antivirals, came out of this theory, the germ theory. And again, I'm not against the germ theory. The problem is when you throw out the baby with the bathwater. And that's what happened. Antoine Béchamp, his theory of the host theory, meaning that your body's ability to fight infection is really important in all of it. But we didn't run with that theory. I don't know if we poo-pooed it, but it was set aside. And again, I will show you a little bit of history of the cancer, our current cancer treatment versus one that was out in actually before World War II. But I will give you some of that history. I'm planning on doing that on Monday's teaching. So here you have it. Louis Pasteur. And today, and you guys know me, it's one of my pet peeves. Today, when we talk about a virus, we can call it the virus. You saw medicine at its best or at its worst. It depends on which way you look at it. And again, you don't come after me and say, well, Dr. Martin doesn't believe in any kind of treatment. No, I absolutely do. If you got to go to an emergency with a raging infection, got to go to emergency, don't call me. You know what I mean? No, I'm not against that. I'm not against antibiotics. I'm not even against antivirals. I'm not against them at all. And I think only a fool would be against those things. They can save your life. But what happened, and we saw it through this pandemic, is the complete dismissal, really, of the terrain, of the host theory. Because very few, now because we have the internet, we have, different social media. Thank God for that. Because at least, if you want to search a little bit, and even people that jump onto our teaching here or our podcast, a lot of them just search and they see it and they listen. Well, at least you get the other side a little bit. And we're often dismissed because we're not following 100% the narrative. And I've told you guys, and I'll tell you again and again and again, there's some things you can't control in life. If there's a pandemic, you can't control that. You can't. But what you can control is your body. As much as, there's some things even in your body you can't control. But what you can do is make sure that your host, the terrain of your body, the body fluids, your microbiome, which is your bacteria. I talked about that every day. I talk about bacteria. And again, you got good guys and bad guys. And really what Antoine Béchamp Béchamp, what Antoine Béchamp was saying is he had a theory that viruses and bacteria were going to be around forever, and we better get used to it and build your immune system. And isn't it interesting that today in nutrition, we've come a long way, baby, in nutrition. Because most people, they live to eat. They live to eat. Rather than eating to live. Do you know what I mean by that? Sure you do. It doesn't matter what I'm putting in my mouth because I enjoy it. Yeah. But it's really important. Nutrition. And there are other things, but nutrition is something you can control. And nutrition, more than anything else, the food that you eat, the choices that you make, are going to determine more than anything else, more than genetics, more than anything you can think of, more than bacteria, more than virus, will determine the state of your immune system and whether your body, I'll give you an example. I wrote a book. It was maybe a negative title, but it said on the book, "Are you built for cancer?" And then I went through in, 20 chapters or so, how your body becomes a good host to cancer. I will talk about that next week. I'll give you some of the things that I wrote. How does your body become a good host to cancer? How does your body become a super host to bacteria and viruses? And, most people on the planet, I'm not saying everyone, but most people on the planet still are going along the broad road, okay? I don't know if you've ever read Matthew chapter 7, but let me just tell you, okay? Here's the words out of Jesus. You know what he said? Enter through the narrow gate. Why? He said. Because broad is the gate. Wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. And narrow is the road that leads to life. Read it, Matthew chapter 7. It's interesting. But I use that analogy to share with you guys. If you think you're in the majority, you're not. And we really found this out, haven't we, through this pandemic? Because everybody is saying, well, stay home, wash your hands. That's Louis Pasteur. Stay home, wash your hands. Social distance, that's Louis Pasteur. That's Louis Pasteur on steroids. Wear a mask, Louis Pasteur. That's where that theory is. And I'm not telling you, you got to do what you think is right. But on the other side, started by Antoine Béchamp, he said, no, that's not near as important as you taking care of your host, your body. If your body is in good shape, I mean, you're talking about, he lived through the late 1800s into the early 1900s. This goes back a long time. He said, no, you're always going to deal with viruses and bacteria. He wasn't talking about cancer, but we could talk about that, and we will. Get your body in shape. If your terrain is in good shape, what you can't see on the outside, inside, where your blood vessels are, when your T cells are working properly, and this is why, I invented a new booster shot. What is it called? Viderma. Now, Antoine Béchamp didn't understand, at least any of the writings I ever read about him, he didn't even understand vitamin D. But you and I do. The sun. My booster shot. Viderma. Vitamin D on the skin. And if you can't get vitamin D on the skin, then take vitamin D. What does vitamin D do? Well, it does a lot of things. It's not even a vitamin, really. It's a hormone. A precursor to a hormone. And your body, you are a human solar panel. Every cell in your body has a receptor to vitamin D. Béchamp didn't even know that. But you want to talk about getting hidden. Nobody wants to talk about that. Who's king of the castle in the world today? Louis Pasteur, not Antoine Béchamp. I call him Béchamp. Sorry. No, but seriously, guys, this is, if you look at history, this is what you will see. And look, again, the pharmaceutical companies do wonderful things, but they have a vested interest to make sure that vitamin D is put on the shelf and that you don't talk about it. Béchamp lost. And, guys like me, we focus in on you and your immune system. I want you to be supercharged so that your body's innate immunity is supercharged so that you are much less vulnerable to any bacteria or any virus. You are a fighting machine. That's my goal. That's why I teach. I want you to be in tip-top shape. I'm a prevention guy. It's not that I dismiss, hey, we got a bacteria, we got a virus. I don't dismiss that. You have a raging infection. I don't dismiss that. But I'd rather you not get a raging infection. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather you not lose the battle to cancer or cardiovascular disease or diabetes. The host, the terrain. So when you see terrain, you know, it's go outside, you know, like this time of the year, and you look at the flower, okay? Or you look at the soil. What's more important, the flower or the soil? Really, that's another analogy. You can look at it, you know? And all our focus is, if you see a bug on the flower, and I'm not saying don't get rid of it, but I think what's more important is that you take care of that soil. Put the nutrition in the soil. Make sure the pH of the soil is very good. Is that right or wrong? Am I wrong about that? I don't think so. And horticulture is not my strength, okay? It isn't. But you understand what I'm saying. And you know, we talked about making your body, and this is why, okay, so I talked to you about vitamin D. Your T cells, your Navy SEALs, they have a special antenna. The Navy SEALs of your immune system, T cells, they're your fighters. They're the first responders in your immune system. And boy, do they ever love vitamin D. As a matter of fact, they have a battery pack. They are supercharged with the sun. Supercharged. And like I say, you can't get the sun. We talked about this a week or so ago or more, but you know, what is it, 80, 90%? I say it's closer to 90% of the population are low in vitamin D. Their serum vitamin D levels are extremely low. They're never optimized. But and you can hardly get a doctor to even test it, because they don't even see, what do you want your vitamin D levels for? That's a wasted blood test. Why do you want that? I'd like to know what that number is. Yeah, but you don't need to. Well, yeah, you do. Because, you see, doctors look at vitamin D. You have to understand it. It's not that they don't know there's vitamin D, but and again, there's a lot of exceptions to it. But the vitamin D, doctors say, well, yeah, but that's only for your bones. Vitamin D and bones. Yeah, well, vitamin D is important for bones. But that's not all. Take the blinders off. There are so many studies on vitamin D, thousands of them. You need a good serum levels of vitamin D, optimized. So that your host, your terrain, even your microbiome rely on vitamin D. Even the little bacteria rely on vitamin D. Here's another one that will kill your immune system. And Antoine Béchamp didn't even know this. Although there were people around that were talking about this at the time. Believe it or not. I spent a lot of time studying the history of food. I talked to you many times about that. What was the first fast food? Bread. When did it come out? You think there wasn't bread before? Of course there was. But they changed the flour. How did they do that? Instead of, stone ground and the wheat germ was full of nutrients, B vitamins and all this and that, they started using different rollers, and now you had flour that had nothing in it. It was a fast food. That flour turned to sugar in a nanosecond. Now, they didn't probably understand all of that at the time, but what they did in the 1930s is they took bread and then they enriched it, because they realized, you know what? There's no vitamins in this bread. That's different flour of the way we process it. And so they started enriching it with vitamins. They had to. There was nothing in it. It was strictly a starch. And even today, go to the grocery store. 99% of the breads that are there are fast foods. Why do I say that? Because they had turned to sugar rapidly. Now, Antoine Béchamp didn't understand that. But he understood that you better have a good immune system. You want to destroy your immune system? Well, have a lack of vitamin D and eat sugar. I'll tell you why. Because sugar does a lot of bad things, but one of the things it does, it suppresses your immune system. Isn't it crazy? You go to a cancer center and you're getting chemotherapy or whatever, and on your way out, at least in Sudbury, I'm sure it is in these major hospitals, you can stop at Tim Hortons and get yourself oh, Dr. Martin, it's a carrot muffin. Yeah, with 8 teaspoons of sugar in it. It's feeding your cancer. I'm just going to get a plain donut. Your cancer's going, woo, 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 woo. It's Christmas all over again. We get to grow, grow, grow. You see, you want to take care of your immune system. And then they give you boost. They're going to boost your chances of that cancer growing. Or they give you Ensure. That'll ensure that you're going to die from your cancer. Now you're drinking your sugar. The worst thing you can do is drink sugar. Oh, Dr. Martin, it's Tropicana. Well, I don't care. It's going to kill you. It's straight sugar. It's going right into your veins. You might as well have an IV of it if you're going to drink sugar. Ooh. I get uptight. But those are 2 things. The most important 2 things you do for your terrain. There's 3. No, but think about it. If Antoine Béchamp was still alive today, I think he'd be a friend of mine. Seriously. And I didn't know that about vitamin D. Yeah, we're learning lots about vitamin D. And it should have been, in my opinion, it should have been 100% given away. If the government had spent gazillions of dollars, at least they should have given every Canadian, North American, vitamin D. Here, start taking supplements every day of vitamin D. If you don't live in Florida. And even if you live in Florida, could we encourage you for a second to go out and get your dose to help your terrain, help your host to be healthy? Can you at least get outside and instead of putting sunscreen on, would you just go out and sunbathe for about 15 or 20 minutes? You'll get 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. Who's saying that? See what I told you guys? I feel like John the Baptist in the wilderness. Hello! Screaming. Repent. Anyways, you guys are great. You put up with my shenanigans every day. Now you see, when I, somebody asked me, actually it's been 4 or 5 times now, asked me to do this, the germ theory versus the terrain or the host theory. And I said, we got to do that again for sure. Anyway, and like I said, I plan on this, Lord willing, on Monday that we talk about cancer theories, okay? And I'll bring you up to date on that. Okay, you guys are great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Guys, give us your feedback. If you are listening to podcasts, give us a little rating there. Give us a little review. It really helps, okay? And we appreciate it. For the tens of thousands of members of our private Facebook group, we thank you for that. What a wonderful community. We appreciate it. Thank you for, again, the Reset book. I asked somebody yesterday because I was answering the question. I said, did you read the book? Guys, what a book. Thank you for making it #1. We appreciate that. Again, you have no idea. Okay, so remember tomorrow's question and answer. Ask your questions. Okay, love you guys. Talk to you soon.